That's all I can think of right now. A lot of things will happen this year that are impossible to predict. Wow, wasn't that the truth? My 2020 prediction video from January was full of hopes and dreams, and they were all dashed because of COVID. I tried to predict which 2020 coaster would open first, which one would open way too late, which one would be the sleeper hit, who would win the major golden ticket awards, which rides would close, which parks would add new coasters, and capped it all off with some bold predictions. So let's look back at that horror and see how wrong I was, and then make some predictions for 2021. We're gonna start by holding me accountable for what I said 11 months ago. I said the first coaster to open would be Texas Stingray, not including West Coast Racers or Sandy's Blasting Bronco, which were 2019 holdovers. This was a safe bet at the time because it started testing before the year even started. And of course, it was one of the only coasters in the world to open to the public before all the parks shut down. Its opening day was February 22nd. As for the coasters opening embarrassingly late, I picked the Jersey Devil coaster. And I think I would have been right about that had everything been open on schedule. Cedar Fair and SeaWorld were on track for spring openings, and Jersey Devil was way behind in typical Six Flags fashion. I guess just about every Six Flags and SeaWorld coaster will open embarrassingly late, but they can't blame incompetence on this one. My sleeper hit was gonna be Icebreaker, the ride that nobody was paying attention to that ended up being great. I also mentioned Texas Stingray as a wild card, either being an elite wooden coaster like Mystic Timbers, or just an ordinary GCI. Turns out, it was just an ordinary GCI. Even though we didn't get to see Icebreaker open in 2020, is it possible to call Orion the sleeper hit of the year? Everyone was dumping on it so much when the layout and the stats were made public, but it seems like everyone who wrote it came off very impressed, myself included. It's weird to think about a Giga coaster from one of the country's biggest parks being a sleeper hit, but it kinda makes sense. Now for my Golden Ticket Award predictions. I called Best New Ride for Iron Gwazi, Best Steel Coaster for Millennium Force on its 20th anniversary, Best Wooden Coaster for The Voyage after its major retracking, and Best Park for Europa Park. It turns out that there were no traditional Golden Ticket Awards this year. They decided to reimagine the awards to do them differently, which totally makes sense with so many parks being closed and projects being delayed worldwide. So none of my predictions were right or wrong. I then went on to predict which rides would close in 2020, and said it would be Goliath at Six Flags New England, and then 2 Six Flags Woodies for the RMC treatment. American Eagle at Six Flags Great America, and Predator at Six Flags Darien Lake. Everyone's plans were put on hold because of this bizarre year, so there were very few announcements made. But I was kind of partially right about Predator. Instead of getting the RMC treatment, it's going to be renovated during the off-season with GCI Titan Track. As for coasters that did announce their closure in 2020, the notable ones include Dragon at Adventureland, a Hopkins Looper, and Primeval Whirl at Animal Kingdom, a twin Reverchon spinning mouse. The coasters at Fantasy Island are also listed as closed as of 2020 when Apex shut down the park, but it'll likely reopen next year under new ownership. As for parks that were supposed to announce a new coaster for 2021, again, every park was thrown off this year. I said Darien Lake would see an RMC Predator, Six Flags St. Louis would get a free spin or a Raptor, Six Flags New England would see a launch coaster, Cedar Point would get their GCI Dueling Inverting Coaster for their 150th anniversary, California's Great America would finally get their Hyper, King's Dominion would get their wing coaster to replace Volcano, and we could see the rumors about Busch Gardens Williamsburg getting a Red Force style launch coaster, as well as SeaWorld San Diego's quad launch coaster, with SeaWorld possibly adding something else new to SeaWorld San Antonio because they've been so aggressive every single year. As for independent parks, I said Knoebels was the most likely park to announce something new for 2021. So what did we end up seeing? The independent park getting a new coaster was not Knoebels, but it was Adventureland getting a new free spin to replace Dragon, called Dragon Slayer, as well as Silverwood getting an RMC Raptor called Stunt Pilot. There's also a water park in South Dakota called Wild Water West, and it looks like they're also going to get a Raptor clone for next year. Velocicoaster was announced for Islands of Adventure to open just 2 years after Hagrid's. There's no announcement, but it seems like King's Dominion is getting an SNS free spin to replace the Crypt. And it wasn't SeaWorld San Antonio that seemed to be on track to get a 2021 edition. It was SeaWorld Orlando, possibly getting a B&M Wing or a B&M Surf Coaster. The rest of the new for 2021 coasters were either announced back in 2019 or are carryovers from 2020 that never opened. We got no official announcements from any of the big chains like we normally do, which is understandable. They're struggling to keep their heads above water, given their circumstances. Finally, my bold predictions. Cedar Fair acquiring a roller coaster park and Six Flags selling one. These did not materialize, and I didn't even hear rumors that this was even a possibility. So now here we are, facing predictions for 2021. With a couple promising vaccines in the works, and some experts saying the world could go back to normal as early as April. Maybe 2021 will look more like 2019 than like 2020. So let's reset the clock and start from the top. What will be the first coaster to open in 2021? You have a lot of possibilities, because there's a lot of complete projects just waiting for the green light. SeaWorld San Diego has Emperor locked and loaded, and are supposed to be open year-round. But with California's restrictions, I'm not sure when they'll be able to open the park, and I don't know if SeaWorld may want to wait until May to draw in the summer crowds. Six Flags Over Texas is another year-round park with a new coaster, but Aquaman is a water coaster, and that probably won't open until Memorial Day weekend. Icebreaker and Iron Gwazi are at Florida parks that are also open year-round, but I can see them holding off until later in the spring. My guess for the first coaster to open in 2021 is the King's Dominion Freespin. Busch Gardens Williamsburg also opens around the same time in late March. But Pantheon is such a major addition that the park may want to wait until life is trending more back to normal before opening it. I don't think King's Dominion will have any reservations about opening their Freespin, which seems like a filler coaster that, at the time of recording this, they haven't even announced yet, and they open in about 3 months. Adventureland's Dragon Slayer will probably open with the park, but that doesn't happen until late April. Now for a ride that will open way too late. Is it possible that the answer to this is still Jersey Devil Coaster a whole year later? I think this may be more driven by the virus and the attendance restrictions on each park, more so than the usual incompetence and delays that usually pushes coaster openings late into the summer or fall or even winter. Going through the list of coasters set to open, I tried to find some that were technologically complicated, and the only one that I could see was the Mack Extreme Spinning Coaster coming to Plopsaland. Mack rides did not seem to have any problem getting Time Traveler open on time at Silver Dollar City, so I have no reason to think that they'll have a problem here. I could see Jersey Devil having some issues also, but that year head start helps out a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that Emperor will open super late this year, just because of the strict California COVID restrictions. But don't sleep on Pantheon either. If Virginia has a strict attendance cap like they did in 2020, Busch Gardens may hang on to this one a little longer. Now, let's talk sleeper hits. And all eyes are on the big SeaWorld projects. What will be better, the massive RMC Iron Gwazi or the insane-looking Intamin Blitz Pantheon? Oh wait, here comes freaking VelociCoaster, which people think may be the best coaster in the world. But there may be another coaster that isn't really being talked about that may lay claim to the best in the world, and that's the King's Dominion SNS Freespin. Just kidding, Mike. I'm really talking about Green Lantern being relocated as Vipère at La Ronde. No, relax, Airtime Thrills. I'm actually for real talking about the Intamin Mega Coaster over at Walibi, Belgium. This thing looks insane, jam-packed with airtime, a non-inverting Cobra roll, just an incredible layout. Being in Belgium, it's naturally going to get less coverage, but when all's said and done, we may be pointing to this Intamin as the best coaster that opened in 2021. I'm assuming that the Golden Ticket Awards will go back to normal in 2021, so let's make some predictions. Best new ride. I really thought that 2020 was going to be Iron Gwazi's year, but now I don't think it stands a chance. For this award, I would bet money on VelociCoaster. It's got a great combination of theming and thrills. How about Best Steel Coaster? Last year, I said it would go to Millennium Force because it was celebrating its 20th anniversary. Even though that novelty has kinda passed, I think the Golden Ticket voters will still give it to Millennium Force as a makeup vote. It finished second to Fury every year since 2016, and none of the other coasters other than maybe Steel Vengeance seems to even come close to getting enough points to be number one. So maybe the voters get bored of giving it to Fury and give it to Millie for a year. I'm just trying to get into the mind of a GTA voter. They think Goliath belongs in the top 50 Steel, and Whizzer is better than Raging Bull. So that's interesting. As for the Best Woody, I said Voyage was gonna take it last year after its retrack. After riding it last year, I can confirm that it's running better than I've ever seen it, and hopefully some of the voters have come out to ride it since then. Sorry, Phoenix. I think Voyage takes the crown back. As for Best Park, this seems to be between Europa Park and Cedar Point every year, and Europa has been coming out on top recently. Cedar Point was planning their 150th anniversary celebration to span over 2 years, and even though they pretty much lost all of 2020, they still have 2021 to go through with it. Even though they won't be getting the new coaster they probably planned on for 2021, they can still do everything else they wanted to do, like the Snake River Expedition, the 150 Spectacular, which will be a giant parade along Main Street every night, new restaurants, an updated town hall that will showcase the park's history, and a bunch of other stuff that may put the park over the top to get the award. Which coasters will be gone after 2021? Six Flags announced that 15 rides would be getting the axe, but which ones, and how many will be coasters? Predator is safe, we know that. American Eagle is still on the clock. According to some sources, those trains need to be replaced, and the park is gonna have to decide what to do with it. I wouldn't be surprised to see them get Titan Track on it, along with brand new trains, those Infinity Flyers. There have also been some rumors about New England's Goliath getting moved, but it may be safe for now. What else may be in danger? Desperado looked like it was on its last leg before the pandemic, and now the whole resort is shut down. Regardless of what happens to Buffalo Bills, Desperado may be officially done for, and we may get word of that this year. My new home park of Frontier City has a star coaster that's closed half the time, Diamondback. I would hate to see it go, but if it does, maybe we'll get a good replacement. That parking lot next to it could be used to expand the footprint, and maybe get something like an RMC Raptor. One more shot in the dark here. Excalibur at Valleyfair seems to be on borrowed time, and it's a coaster that's outdated and sits on a flood zone. I was hoping to ride it in 2020 before it gets removed, and I'll try to make it a point to ride it in 2021 as long as the park's open. And now for the parks that will announce new additions for 2022. This has become extremely hard because of the closures. Parks and chains are offering extensions on their passes, or outright giving their 2020 pass holders the entire year of 2021. So in addition to their loss of revenue for people not visiting in 2020, they're getting nothing from their renewing pass holders for 2021. This will affect parks for years to come, and will impact their decision on what to add. Parks that could expect major additions every 3 to 4 years will have to wait longer. And the other parks? Well, you weren't getting anything good anyway. Six Flags Magic Mountain will still get their RMC Raptor for 2022. I'm pretty confident that this project will not fall through. They would have probably liked to have this for their 50th anniversary in 2021, but unless there's a lot of activity at the park that I haven't seen, it'll be pushed off. Dorney Park is another park that looked like it was going to get a new coaster, this being a Gravity Group shuttle coaster on the plot of Stinger and Possessed. As long as they don't throw this plan out the window, they should still do it in 2022. I would also be very surprised if Cedar Point didn't do something major for 2022. This will be 4 years after Steel Vengeance, and it seemed like they were going to make their 150th anniversary celebration a 2-year affair for the sole purpose of tying in a 2021 coaster. With 2020 being a wash, I'm assuming that they just pushed their plans off for a year. What this coaster will be? I'm not sure. I was thinking a GCI wooden dueling inverting coaster, but that seems too similar to Steel Vengeance without being as good. I'm not sure what would be realistic for Cedar Point, so if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments below. I'll throw one more Six Flags edition into the mix in addition to the Magic Mountain Raptor, and that's going to be an SNS free spin for Six Flags Over Georgia. As for independent parks, I said Knoebels could be the most likely to announce a new edition for 2021, and a couple others popped up and surprised me. Based on how this year went, I'm gonna bet on Mount Olympus to put in a new coaster. They were one of the first parks to open in 2020, and seemed to get a lot of attention from enthusiasts because of it. They may have ended up much better financially than most of the other parks, and are in position to finally get that Gerstlauer Infinity coaster or maybe even a Eurofighter that they could use in their lineup. Kentucky Kingdom also had some plans leaked for a new Raptor, and this is supposed to go between Storm Chaser and Thunder Run. This will likely be announced at some point over the summer as a 2022 edition. As for parks overseas, let's take a flyer on Thorpe Park. It will have been 10 years since their last new coaster, The Swarm, and 4 years since their Walking Dead renovation. It may be high time for something new for the UK. As for SeaWorld and their aggressive plans for expansion across all their parks, I think they'll rest on their 2020/2021 editions for a while. Based on reports that they weren't paying off their vendors, this tells me that they may have bitten off more than they can chew, and the pandemic really derailed the big 2020 that they were counting on. Finally, bold predictions. These scare me, not gonna lie, because they're never right. But in this case, I hope it's not right. My bold prediction is that at least 3 parks with multiple coasters will never recover from their 2020 shutdowns, and they'll announce their permanent closure. A few parks that stand out as possible victims are Coney at Lake Park, Funtown Splashtown USA, and Cliffs Amusement Park. I'm not saying it's going to be these 3, but they seem like possibilities. There are some small parks in California and New York that may have a hard time coming back after losing a full year of revenue. But with the vaccines coming in soon, maybe they can turn it back around while there's still time. Let me know what you think of these predictions for 2021 and what you think will happen next year. Again, like last year, I apologize for being so American-centric with this list, but I'm just not familiar with European and Asian patterns. So if you have any predictions for non-American parks, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. That's the best way to show your support for the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so because we're gonna have an awesome 2021. And I'll see you all next time.